These are the industrial ruins of Kenosha, Wisconsin, where over 5,000 autoworkers lost their jobs in a single day, and an entire city had to reinvent itself from the ground up. This is the story of how AMC, America's fourth largest automaker, vanished from the shores of Lake Michigan and what rose from its ashes. On December 21st, 1988, Larry Cruiser stood beside the last car to roll off the Kenosha assembly line, a humble Dodge Omni that marked the end of an era. Behind him, the massive American Motors Corporation plant that had defined this lakefront city for decades was already beginning its transformation into something nobody could have imagined. But to understand what Kenosha became, we first need to understand what it lost. The story begins in 1902, when the Thomas B. Jeffery Company opened its doors in this Wisconsin city, initially producing bicycles before switching to automobiles. This was not just another factory, it was the foundation of what would become one of America's most significant automotive manufacturing centers. For over a century, the rumble of engines and the rhythm of assembly lines would define daily life in Kenosha. In 1916, former General Motors President Charles W. Nash spotted opportunity in the struggling automaker and acquired the company, renaming it Nash Motors. Nash understood something crucial about the automotive industry. Sometimes survival meant thinking differently than the giants. While Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler battled for supremacy with ever larger vehicles, Nash carved out a respectable niche by focusing on efficiency and innovation. The real transformation came on May 1, 1954, when Nash Kelvinator Corporation merged with the Hudson Motor Car Company to create the American Motors Corporation. Suddenly, this Kenosha plant was not just a regional facility, it was the beating heart of America's fourth largest automaker. The merger brought together two companies with complementary strengths, and the Kenosha facility became AMC's primary manufacturing site. Under the leadership of American Motors CEO George W. Romney, who was the father of future presidential candidate Mitt Romney, the company pursued what it called a dinosaur fighter strategy. While the big three automakers introduced increasingly massive cars, Romney openly mocked those gas-guzzling dinosaurs, and he focused American Motors' efforts on compact, fuel-efficient vehicles. This was not just marketing speak, it was a vision that anticipated America's energy concerns by nearly 2 decades. The Kenosha plant became a symbol of this innovative approach. Across its sprawling 1.87 million square feet of factory floor, workers assembled some of the most distinctive cars in American automotive history. The Rambler, with its practical design and efficient engineering, became AMC's flagship. The quirky AMC Gremlin, with its truncated rear end, captured the imagination of a generation looking for something different. And who could forget the AMC Pacer, that wide-bodied fishbowl-windowed oddity that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. At its peak, this industrial powerhouse employed over 16,000 people. Think about that number for a moment. In a city the size of Kenosha, that represented not just jobs, but entire family trees of automotive workers. Fathers passed down positions to sons, knowledge flowed through generations, and the plant's 3 shifts meant the city never truly slept. The facility operated around the clock, its smokestacks visible for miles across Lake Michigan, a constant reminder of the industrial might that powered the local economy. But the automotive industry is brutal, and AMC faced mounting pressures throughout the 1970s. Foreign competition intensified, oil crises shifted consumer preferences, and the company's quirky independence became a liability in an industry increasingly dominated by economies of scale. Employment at the Kenosha plant fluctuated wildly, dropping to as low as 2,000 during the worst downturns, then surging back when new models launched. By the time Roy Abernethy had succeeded George Romney as AMC Chief Executive Officer, the company was struggling to compete with the economic forces reshaping American manufacturing. In 1980, French automaker Renault invested heavily in the struggling company, bringing European engineering expertise but also highlighting AMC's precarious financial position. The writing was on the wall, though few wanted to read it. The end came swiftly. In 1987, Chrysler Corporation's legendary Chief Executive Officer Lee Iacocca acquired American Motors Corporation, primarily to gain access to the company's Jeep brand and the promising Jeep Grand Cherokee that was already in development. For Iacocca, this was a strategic move to strengthen Chrysler's position in the increasingly competitive SUV market. For Kenosha, it spelled disaster. On a cold January day in 1988, Chrysler announced what thousands of workers had feared but hoped would never come. The Kenosha assembly plant would close at the end of the year. More than 5,000 jobs would disappear, representing 10% of the county's entire workforce. In a single announcement, decades of automotive heritage were reduced to a cost-cutting measure. The decision sparked controversy that reverberates to this day. Rudy Kuzel, chairman of UAW Local 72, did not mince words when he told the Wall Street Journal that Lee Iacocca represents what is wrong with corporate America, and that he does not care any more about America than Joe Stalin did. Kuzel dispatched workers around the country to picket Iacocca with Iacocca-lied signs, but corporate decisions had already been made in distant boardrooms. Authors Paul Ingracia and Joseph B. White, in their book Comeback, suggested that Iacocca's loyalty to Detroit influenced the decision. The logical move might have been to close aging Detroit facilities where K-cars were built, but instead, Kenosha paid the price. Some locals still harbor conspiracy theories about the closure, believing political considerations outweighed economic logic. The final months were emotional and tense. Workers who had dedicated their careers to building cars faced an uncertain future. Some had started as teenagers and never worked anywhere else. The plant that had been their second home, where they had formed lifelong friendships and taken pride in American manufacturing, was being dismantled around them. On December 21, 1988, the final Dodge Omni rolled off the line. It was an unremarkable car, a simple economy sedan that Chrysler had inherited from American Motors Corporation's partnership with Renault. But for the workers who built it, and the community that supported them, it represented the end of everything they had known. The demolition that followed was equally dramatic. Chrysler had negotiated $220 million in closing agreements, including $20 million specifically to raise the buildings. By 1990, the massive factory complex was gone. The final act came with the implosion of the last remaining smokestack, an event so significant that 10,000 spectators gathered to witness it. It was part celebration, part funeral, and entirely symbolic of a city forced to confront its future without its defining industry. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. What happened next wasn't just urban renewal. It was urban reimagining. Unlike other Rust Belt cities such as Detroit, Gary, or Youngstown that struggled with deindustrialization, Kenosha chose a different path. Mayor John Antaramian looked at the 31 acres of lakefront land and saw opportunity where others saw devastation. It looked like a battlefield, he later recalled, describing the rubble-strewn site and the perception many people had of the city. But instead of mourning what was lost, Kenosha chose to build something entirely different. The transformation into Harbor Park represents one of the most successful industrial redevelopment projects in American history. Where smokestacks once dominated the skyline, visitors now find 69 acres of carefully planned mixed-use development. Lakeside condominiums offer residents stunning views of Lake Michigan. A large recreational marina attracts boaters from across the region. Parks and promenades provide public spaces for recreation and reflection. The development includes cultural attractions that would have seemed impossible during the industrial era. The Kenosha Public Museum, opened in 2000, showcases local history and natural science. The Civil War Museum, opened in 2008, has become a Smithsonian Institution affiliate, drawing visitors from across the Midwest. Sculptures and fountains add artistic touches to spaces that once echoed with machinery. The most symbolic touch was reviving the Kenosha Electric Railway to connect these new attractions. The original streetcar system had operated from 1903 to 1932, then disappeared for nearly 7 decades. In June 2000, Historic President's Conference Committee cars originally built for Toronto in the 1950s began carrying passengers again, linking downtown to the transformed lakefront. The irony was not lost on residents. A city that had built cars for nearly a century now featured a transit system that offered an alternative to automobile dependency. Visitors could park downtown and ride vintage streetcars to explore the new lakefront district, a perfect metaphor for Kenosha's reinvention. But the story does not end with Harbor Park. Even as one chapter of automotive history closed, another continued. While the assembly plant disappeared, the separate Kenosha engine plant continued production until October 22, 2010, marking exactly 108 years of automaking in Kenosha. That final engine represented the true end of an ERA that had begun when horses still outnumbered cars on American roads. The economic transformation took time, and it was not without pain. For workers involved in the plant closure, the transition was often devastating. Retraining programs helped some, but they could not replace decades of specialized knowledge or the camaraderie of the factory floor. Families relocated, careers changed course, and the social fabric of the community had to be rewoven. Yet economists note that diversification ultimately strengthened Kenosha's economy. As one analyst observed, the auto plant totally dominated the local labor market, but it also meant a very unstable labor market, because AMC was going like a roller coaster. The boom and bust cycles that had defined employment for decades gave way to a more stable, diverse economic base. Today, Kenosha is experiencing another transformation. In October 2024, local leaders broke ground on the ambitious $450 million Kenosha Harbor District development. This project by Cobalt Partners plans to revitalize 9 downtown blocks with over 1,000 new housing units, premium office space, restaurants, retail outlets, a branded hotel, and public spaces. The Carrick apartment complex represents the first major component of this comprehensive redevelopment. Scott Yauch, President and Chief Executive Officer of Cobalt Partners and the project's developer, captures the moment perfectly. We got a blank canvas between the southern and northern portion of downtown, and it is a great opportunity to redefine the future of Kenosha. That blank canvas represents more than just development opportunity. It symbolizes how communities can reinvent themselves when forced to confront fundamental change. The collaboration between Milwaukee-based Cobalt Partners, Summit Smith Development, C.D. Smith Construction, and the City of Kenosha demonstrates how public-private partnerships can drive transformation. When you visit Harbor Park today, it is almost impossible to imagine the industrial landscape that once occupied this space. Children play in parks where workers once assembled cars. Families stroll along promenades where freight trains once delivered raw materials. The marina hosts sailing regattas where smokestacks once pierced the sky. Mayor Antaramian, reflecting on the transformation, offers perspective that extends beyond Kenosha. When you think about what it looked like in 1992 to where we are today, it is a huge upgrade for the area. That upgrade represents more than physical improvement. It demonstrates how communities can emerge stronger from economic devastation. The museums clustered within a 1-mile radius of the former plant site tell multiple stories. The Civil War Museum connects Kenosha to national historical narratives. The Dinosaur Discovery Museum engages young minds with scientific wonder. The Kenosha Public Museum preserves local heritage while embracing future possibilities. All three are Smithsonian Institution affiliates, bringing world-class educational resources to a community once defined primarily by manufacturing. The Kenosha story offers lessons for communities across America facing similar transitions. The decline of manufacturing does not have to mean the decline of place. Strategic planning, community engagement, and a willingness to embrace change can transform industrial ruins into cultural and economic assets. As the Harbor District development unfolds over the next decade, Kenosha continues writing its post-industrial story. The city that once sent ramblers and gremlins across America now attracts visitors to experience its lakefront renaissance. Where assembly lines once operated with mechanical precision, streetcars now carry tourists and residents to cultural attractions and recreational amenities. The AMC plant is gone, but its legacy persists in unexpected ways. The industrial infrastructure that supported automotive manufacturing provided the foundation for redevelopment. The work ethic and community pride that characterized the plant's workforce contributed to the successful transformation. Even the controversy surrounding the closure galvanized civic leaders to pursue ambitious alternatives. From Thomas B. Jeffery's bicycle factory in 1902 to the Harbor District groundbreaking in 2024, Kenosha's story spans more than a century of American economic evolution. The city witnessed the rise of the automobile industry, experienced its consolidation and globalization, and ultimately transcended its dependence on manufacturing through creative redevelopment. Today's visitors to Harbor Park might not know they're walking where thousands once built cars that defined American automotive innovation. But that's fitting. The best urban transformations don't just preserve the past, they create new possibilities for the future. In Kenosha, where AMC once stood, something remarkable has replaced it, a community that learned to thrive by embracing change rather than resisting it.